Afghan forces are being overwhelmed by the Taliban as U.S. forces continue their withdrawal. What this means for the future of the region and the future of U.S. security. Plus,
there are too many violent offenders and too little consequences in our courts.
A long and deadly Independence Day weekend. More than 230 people killed in more than 400 separate shootings nationwide. We'll discuss what New York is doing about the shooting surge now. And at least 1,500 businesses now under attack. How Russian hackers crippled companies of all sizes with a single breach. The Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. Hope you had a great holiday weekend. While we enjoyed fireworks and cookouts, a lot of companies were scrambling to deal with another ransomware attack. Among them, according to reports, Swedish grocery store chain Co-op, which closed more than half of its 800 stores. Experts say possibly thousands of businesses worldwide have been impacted in industries from financial services, information technology to travel and leisure, even the public sector. Many returning to work today to find the damage done, their data frozen with a demand for money to get it back. A Russia-linked gang is to blame again, but this time around, smaller targets, not as many large companies. Now it seems the hackers are thumbing their nose at everyone, saying, catch us if you can. Many of the groups targeted are companies that manage the IT infrastructure of other organizations. Basically an inside track doing damage through the very companies built to protect them from that damage. The group involved is called Revil. It's the same group behind the ransomware attack on JBS Meat Processing last month. Late Sunday, the group offered a key that would unlock all the affected machines for $70 million in cryptocurrency. So rather than dealing with all the individual organizations, which led some to believe maybe that was an indication that the hackers have infected more machines than they can handle. We're not only coming off the 4th of July weekend, we are, of course, coming off the recent summit between Presidents Biden and Putin. And the message from the U.S. about these cyber attacks was pretty clear. Knock it off. So much for that. The question now, what are we doing? What could we do? What should we do? Is there a way to send a message, maybe make a statement? It's not like what we're doing now is making a difference. The hacks continue, and so do the ransoms. So is the next move ours? What would that look like? And is it time to start swinging back? That's where we begin tonight. Let's get the latest on the weekend attacks and welcome in News Nation's Michael Schur. First of all, do we know how widespread this ransom attack was in particular, Michael?
We don't exactly know, and we're finding out more and more victims, Joe, as the day has gone on, and certainly over the weekend people were discovering this. As a matter of fact, Co-op, which is that Swedish grocery store chain that you mentioned, they didn't even know how widespread it was. They were unable to open cash registers in a few of their stores, and then they started realizing that so many more of their stores weren't able to do that. This is affecting everything from big businesses down to a kindergarten in New Zealand. So show you just exactly how widespread this is. So you have a company like Kaseya where this happened, and they have clients, and those clients use what they call their managed service software, the MSP, managed service providing software. That software then is moved on to all of the clients of the people that are actually clients of Kaseya. So it's sort of a trickle down. Today, Fred Vicola, who's the CEO of Kaseya, went on. He had a 9-minute talk with his clients, his customers, online, talking to them about what could have happened, Joe. He was saying that this could have affected 800,000 to 1 million of his clients. That's how widespread it could have been. So they're looking at it and saying, what could we have done to do better here? But they're happy that it wasn't worse.
Right. Do we know, Michael, at this point, we don't know how bad it is, how widespread it is, but from what I understand, there are a lot of experts who are saying this could have been much worse.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when you take those numbers that I just mentioned, that Fred Vicola actually mentioned, and you saw him there, when you take those numbers and you say, okay, we had several thousand, maybe 1,500 businesses affected by this, but when Kaseya software is used as a management service provider to upwards of 1 million companies, this could have been far worse. It doesn't mean it's not going to get worse. It doesn't mean that they know where the end point is here yet, Joe, but they do think that they sort of nipped it in the bud. CASINGS, for their part, said within an hour of hearing about this, they shut down all of their servers that were sharing their information. So they were able to nip this in the bud to a degree, which is an important part of this, is that the companies are now a bit more prepared because they've been able to go to school on some of these other ransomware attacks that have happened.
News Nation's Michael Schur. Good to see you, Michael. Take care.
Thanks, Joe.
Let's turn now to someone who has responded to cyber attacks for the FBI. Gina Osborn, a former special agent heading up cyber and computer forensics, as well as a U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent. So it's great to have you with us with your insight, Gina. Do we know for sure who was behind these attacks?
Well, just looking at the news reports, it appears that it quite possibly could have been that Revel ransomware entity, which would be Russia. But at this stage in the game, according to what I've seen, they're still trying to determine if that's the case.
Based on your experience, do you have any doubt that Russia could stop this if it wanted to?
I believe that we have to really look into these ransom attacks and what's considered an act of war. I mean, they've been going on. Cyber attacks have been going on. I mean, if you date back all the way back to the Sony attack by North Korea, we have to determine as a country, what are we doing with these, and are we going to respond to those? And I think that's what this administration is looking at.
Do we know at this point what information they were looking for, what information they got?
As far as the Revel group?
Right, this most recent weekend hack.
Well, the ransomware, I mean, the Revel group, they're sort of like a ransomware for hire type of a group. And so essentially the $70 million, which was put out on their blog, is what they were looking for. So this appears to be a financial attack as opposed to a SolarWinds that was an intelligence attack.
I got that. Have you heard at all, Gina, whether anyone has paid or what the plan is moving forward?
I have not heard as to whether or not anyone has paid. The FBI does not recommend payment of ransomware. So I think it just remains to be seen just how widespread this is and what's going to happen as a result of all of these companies being without their data.
Right, and we don't really know, as we pointed out, how deep this goes, because a lot of companies don't report that they've been targeted by this ransomware, and others don't say that they've admitted to paying this. But I'm curious, the more we hear about these, Gina, what are we doing right now as a government in response to all of this?
Well, the FBI is working very, very hard to investigate these things, and that information is going into the intelligence community and it's getting to the president. So this administration really needs to determine what it is they're going to do and what is an act of war. I mean, is this an act of war if Russia is not, or if Russia is refusing to give up these individuals who are doing these things to the United States? If we indict them, that's a problem. And so I know that with the discussions between the president and Putin, that was definitely a topic that they discussed.
What could we do? Is it possible that we decide, as I said a few minutes ago, to maybe swing back this time and say, look, we're not fooling around, we mean it, or does that not do us any good? Do the hacks continue?
You know, that is definitely a possibility to get the military involved. I think a lot of companies at this stage need to back up their data. I mean, if you are attacked and you have your data backed up at a different location, that's how you don't have to pay, because you have your data and have these routine updates. So that's definitely a way of making sure that the company is updating their software and their operating systems. So there are things that can be done at the corporate level to make sure that your data is safe. So if something like this happens, that you'll have it and you won't have to pay to get it back.
Or start all over again from scratch, which is as expensive as, if not even more, which is why a lot of these organizations and companies pay the ransom. We'll see where this unfolds. Gina Osborn, former special agent, heading up cyber and computer forensics, as well as a U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent. Thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Well, we all celebrated Independence Day in our own way over the weekend, but Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg making some waves on the internet with his celebration. We'll have more on that ahead. And the sudden withdrawal of U.S. troops has led to Afghan forces fleeing their country. Is the Taliban on a path to total control? We'll discuss with a national security expert. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at the Donlon Report on Twitter. The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan has led to rapid expansion by Taliban forces. Over the weekend, more than 1,000 Afghan troops retreated across the border into Tajikistan, marking the third wave of troops to flee to that neighboring country. Afghan forces now planning a counterattack in the north, but with the Taliban now controlling roughly a third of all Afghanistan districts, is victory too far out of reach? Joining me now, News Nation's Leland Vittert. Leland?
Well, it certainly doesn't help in terms of fighting a war when the soldiers run away before they even bother fighting the Taliban. So that happened. The other thing that the Afghans are doing right now is they're enjoying and inventorying the fruits of their looting. The American military left untold millions of dollars worth of equipment and weapons when the Americans pulled out literally in the middle of the night from Bagram Air Force Base. They didn't bother to take guitars, trucks, and everything in between. This is a store owner who replenished his entire store with looted stuff. This is the Bagram Air Force parking lot where there was also a number of military vehicles and trucks left as well. The Taliban's very good at repurposing, shall we say, these materials for their own use. The Daily Mail now reports that the Taliban has warned NATO to get its troops out by September 11th or be treated as, quote, occupying forces as the terror group continues its sweep across the country, a successful sweep at that. The Taliban has taken over territory at an alarming speed and now encircles most of Kabul. It's unclear exactly how much of all that looted American gear from Bagram is going to end up in the Taliban hands, but in the past, they have been remarkably successful in repurposing weapons captured either during battle or when Americans left or when the Russians left. And as America withdraws, ending its longest war, a new world power is filling the vacuum. That would be the Chinese, for whom Afghanistan is key now to their Belt and Road project. It's a worldwide infrastructure project which puts China in the position to control key logistics routes around the world. You consider this, Afghanistan has humbled every empire. It is the graveyard of empires. In this century, it has humbled already the Russians and the Americans. Now you have to wonder if the Chinese are next.
Well, you do, because we've asked, who do you think might fill the void there? And it seemed that no one would, but now it appears China might.
Well, right. They love a void. It doesn't take that many millions of dollars to buy your way into Afghanistan and to start building things. And for the Chinese, Afghanistan is key. If we put up a map of Afghanistan, it borders China, which means giving up Bagram Air Force Base to the United States was giving up the base that the United States controlled that was closest to the Chinese. The Chinese have been very careful as they've gone around the world, really, pouring money into what they call infrastructure projects, which often tend to be what the Pentagon would call dual use, meaning they're civilian infrastructure projects until the Chinese decide to militarize them.
Right. All right, Leland, thanks very much. For more now, we want to turn to Jason Beardsley. He is the National Executive Director of the Association of the U.S. Navy. So if this is the case, Jason, why would we leave, as we understand it, without telling anyone, basically in the middle of the night?
Joe, I think that's a great question, and I thought Leland teed this up well. What's shocking about this is we've known we were going to pull out for quite some time now, and generals and military leaders have had years to plan this. One of the things the U.S. military does very well is logistics. So it does beg the question, how are we not better communicating to the forces, the Afghan forces on the ground, of our overnight withdrawal? It looks sloppy, but that's something we kind of expect because for the last 15 years, our leadership has not articulated a clear, winnable military objective here. So we're just getting more of that, and this highlights kind of where our leadership has been. Some
of this stuff that we're leaving behind, I get, Jason, basketballs and guitars and whatnot, but military equipment, are you surprised at what you're seeing that we left behind there?
No, unfortunately, I've seen this before. The United States military, again, I said, it's one of the greatest things they do is logistics. But in the case of kind of withdrawal, we did this in Iraq, we've done this in base after base all around the world. It's almost like part of the benefits program is when we leave, you're going to get the equipment to fall behind on. The problem here is that equipment is going into the hands of the enemies of the Afghan people and the enemy of the Afghan government. So it's not always the best move, but the military does this very deliberately, very frequently.
Well, not only our equipment and leftover gear, but as Leland just mentioned, these Afghan forces that are leaving and going across the border are leaving their guns and weapons as well for the Taliban to take over. So, which they're doing in a number of areas. I guess the question is what's going to happen here? I think we all sort of were worried and afraid this might happen, and it is.
Right. Well, and I think we're going to see a continual erosion as this vacuum, as Leland pointed out, is going to be filled by China. And I guess the upside of this is that China's going to put money on the ground, and he nailed it with billions of dollars. You can buy your way into infrastructure projects, bribe, graft. So basically, there's no incentive for the Afghan forces to hold their ground if, in fact, there's been a power dynamic, a shift from empires, from the United States to China, and now they're just going to wait for the money to roll in. So if China really wants to stabilize it, you led into this report with that piece, is they're next in the barrel. They've got, Afghanistan took Russia. The United States is finally withdrawn, and I think there's good reason for that. Now it's China's opportunity to try to settle the region, and they are going to rely on having peace in order to have their projects protected.
I haven't talked to many military experts who think Afghanistan really has a chance moving forward, considering all that they're up against. What do you think about that?
Again, in strict military form, they probably don't. But remember, now that China is investing in the infrastructure, they've already practiced this across Africa, places in Indo-Pacific, and now Afghanistan will get an opportunity, like many other states, to take the wealth. You watch that go into the hands of corrupt governing officials, and get certain families will become rich and tribes. But at the end of the day, money moves people. And so China has an opportunity to do this. But again, this is a big loss for the United States. And it begs the question, where has our military leadership, political leadership, been on the precipice of this? Where were they in front of this to sort of come up with a different solution?
Well, there's talk of drone attack strategy, which I'm sure you've heard. Do you envision any sort of situation that would require us to re-engage there, either by air or otherwise?
Absolutely. We see it all the time, whether it's Somalia, we see it in Iraq, we saw it in Syria. When the United States pulls out, the preference is over the horizon military strikes. And you hear that from our senior DoD leadership now. It's their established plan of reaction is over the horizon air attacks. Now, they haven't fully defined that, and that requires cooperation, security cooperation agreements with regional partners, and we haven't got all those yet. Mm-hmm. So it is going to be a little bit tricky, but yeah, I do expect to see those down the road.
All right, Jason Beardsley, thank you so much. Former Green Beret as well. We'll add to your resume there. It's great to have you with us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Joe.
COVID-19 is complicating the border crisis. After the break, we discussed how the Biden administration is responding to that problem. And Tropical Storm ELSA barreling toward the U.S. coast, what it means for search and rescue teams in Surfside. That's ahead. Hope is waning in the search for survivors in Surfside, Florida. Search and rescue crews pulled 4 more victims from the rubble today, bringing the death toll now to 36. A day after the remaining part of that building was brought down Sunday. Now the outer bands of Tropical Storm ELSA are complicating search efforts, bringing high winds and heavy rain to the region. News Nation's Brian Enton is in Surfside with the latest for us tonight. Brian?
Joe, 109 people are still missing here. Just a couple of minutes ago, we were allowed to get very, very close to the collapse site, really just across the street. And to see it that closely, which is the first time I've been able to personally be that close, it's just overwhelming how much rubble still remains there. So far, crews say they've moved 124 million tons of rubble. But when you're there, you realize that they just have so much more to do. The most heartbreaking part of today, though, Joe, was this funeral that happened just 2 blocks from where we are right now, 2 blocks from the collapse site. It was a funeral for an entire family that all died in the collapse, the Guara family. Marcus and Anna are the parents, the children, 11-year-old Lucia and 4-year-old Emma. You can imagine how difficult it was for the surviving family members to be there, losing all 4 people in just one family. We're told by family members that the 2 daughters, Emma and Lucia, were put in one casket because they were very, very close, and that's what they would have wanted. And the priest said, as just devastating as all of it is, that he found some solace in knowing that at least that family went together. Joe?
Well, it's just heartbreaking. Brian, a couple of quick questions for you. I'm wondering, with this building now down, the part that had remained up, has it helped them speed up the process of this search and rescue operation with more heavy equipment?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really changed everything, according to the officials, because they were not able to get to an entire large area of the mound because they were worried about the building toppling over and debris falling down on top of them. Once they got that building down over the weekend, now they're able to search the entire area.
And then the other one, before we let you go, just the impact of Tropical Storm ELSA and how that's impacted that search effort as well.
Yeah, there's been a for sure impact. Overnight, they had to call off the search because of lightning in the area. And then again today, for 2 hours, they stopped the search and rescue operation because they say the wind gusts were in excess of 30 miles per hour. And once again, lightning became a big issue, Joe.
All right. News Nation's Brian Enton. Brian, thanks for the update. Want to turn now to the storm complicating the already difficult search and rescue effort there, the one we just mentioned, Tropical Storm ELSA heading up the western coast of Florida, dropping heavy rain as it makes its way north. Albert Ramon here now to explain more about the situation and the storm. And we just got an update on this not too long ago, right?
Right. So it is getting stronger. It's just below hurricane strength, and we expect ELSA to become a Category 1 hurricane overnight. You saw Brian's live report. Rain-free right now, and the main concern for the Miami and Surfside area will be thunderstorms coming off the Atlantic, rotating. So Miami under a tornado watch for the remainder of the evening. But really the worst impact is going to be, as you mentioned, west coast of Florida.
All right. So where does it go from here? It's heading north, right up toward the Big Bend area.
Exactly. So Tampa, they're going to see deteriorating conditions here this evening. Tropical storm conditions in the 9 o'clock Eastern hour. Hurricane force winds possible in Tampa Bay after midnight. And then this makes landfall. You're right. Big Bend of Florida. Gainesville could have hurricane strength winds, at least when it comes to gusts tomorrow morning. And then eventually it finds its way into Georgia and right up along the East Coast, all the way into New England by late this week.
The cone of possibility on this thing literally went all the way up the East Coast, didn't it?
And it's shrinking from Florida all the way to Maine, included in that cone of uncertainty. So as the cone shrinks, the confidence in the forecast goes up.
All right. Well, I know you'll be keeping an eye on it tonight on Prime and on Banfield as well.
Correct.
Albert, thanks. Good to see you. The California recall just more than a month away. We will get down to some of the biggest challenges facing the state amid the effort to unseat Gavin Newsom. Plus, a violent 4th of July weekend leads to emergency action in New York, what Governor Andrew Cuomo is hoping will curb the violent crime there. A 1-month-old girl was among 7 people shot in Chicago last Thursday in what police called a mass shooting. 3 gunmen fire in various directions before jumping back into a Jeep and speeding away. The city's police superintendent saying there is too little consequence for illegal guns. And that led into a holiday weekend in which more than 230 people nationwide were shot and killed. News Nation's Felicia Bolton joins us now. This problem's certainly bigger than one city.
Absolutely, Joe.
What are you finding?
I mean, it's so difficult to even talk about this issue because to pinpoint a solution has been the main part of this whole issue. Right. I'm going to start with some video out of Oakland, first off, just to show you an example of what's happening there. 12 hours of nonstop chaos in Oakland, fireworks, shootings, gunfire. There's video from over the weekend of police responding to a number of incidents, including this one right here in Oakland, California. And then in Portland, they've had about 500 shootings this year alone. That's almost double of what their normal amount of shootings. There's an increase of violence. And over the weekend, for instance, there's more than 80 shots that were fired in a neighborhood, shell casings just littering the street there. From coast to coast, police and community leaders are seeing this issue, especially after this weekend. But that leads us to the question, how can we solve this, right? Over there in New York, Governor Cuomo, he's now issued a declaration saying that shootings are, in fact, a public health crisis.
What does the declaration lead to, though? What does that mean?
I know, that's another thing. Is this really going to make a difference? This declaration, though, it will allow the state of New York to move faster and also use state money to create free programs to end gun violence. In the past, that responsibility has fallen heavily on community leaders to create these types of programs. Governor Cuomo also says it sends a very clear message just how seriously he takes this. It prompted him to really declare this as a public health crisis. First state in the nation to do this.
And here in Chicago as well, we've been talking, a lot of people here are wanting changes, demanding changes. We were just talking a minute ago, if it were easy or if there were one solution, we would have already found it and done it by now. There are several. So other specific steps maybe that New York is taking now.
Yeah, so New York, they're going to have a comprehensive plan that should have specific steps that they're going to take, including in those steps targeting hotspot areas where there have been high levels of gun violence and also adding resources to those areas. Because they will also create positive engagement programs with at-risk youth. One of the things that the governor says is he wants to break the cycle of violence. Take a listen.
It then also allows us to move even faster and free up money and free up programs so we can get it on the street, and we can get it on the street now. Treat gun violence as it is, which is really a public health emergency.
And Joe, I'm going to leave you with this because everyone talks about Chicago and the violence that they see in the city of Chicago. Obviously, it's an issue, but the police superintendent, he went on the record today saying that he's gotten a lot of slack for it. He's done everything that he can. He's also been able to cancel vacation days for his officers. They're in the line receiving this as well, getting shot at themselves over this weekend. He's saying that the courts should do more. The court's saying they're doing as much as they can. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she's now speaking up, saying that she's going to come out with a plan with some details about how she can curb the violence.
All right. We'll continue to follow this tomorrow right here on this broadcast. Felicia Bolton, thank you. We're going to shift now to immigration. With a growing number of migrants in U.S. detention, there's a new challenge, a spike in coronavirus cases. Julio Rosas of townhall.com just returned from the border. Julio, are they not vaccinating the detainees there? What exactly is happening and what are you seeing? Because I know you were just there recently.
Yeah, no, I mean, the problem is just the fact that we still have people coming across the U.S.-Mexico border in record numbers, right? And so, I mean, Border Patrol agents have always had to deal with different diseases that they can catch themselves. It's just coronavirus has been just the latest challenge that they've had to face. And so, I mean, part of the issue is that the fact that, like I said before, just that we're having people cross in big numbers, and that leads to more people in the holding facilities, which are not, 6 feet apart, very friendly at all. And so, they're doing the best they can. That's kind of the point of having Title 42 in place, is to prevent a spread by not having people congregate in those facilities. And that is why people are very concerned, especially at the border. City officials and Border Patrol, they're very concerned about the Biden administration is on the cusp of removing that very soon. It appears that they're on track to go ahead and do that.
I'm not sure you know this, Julio, but what are they doing as a result of all of these COVID cases in these detention centers?
Well, like I said, they want to have Title 42 be applied to everybody, and that's how it was under President Donald Trump. If you were unaccompanied minor, if you're a family unit, or if you're a single adult male, and you were caught at the border, you were under Title 42 removed for your safety, again, for not congregating in these facilities.
Right. I mean, now that they're here, though, in these detention centers, are they trying to separate them? Can they quarantine them? What are they doing?
I mean, they certainly are trying, but like I said, the problem is just that holding people in these facilities, there's just not enough space, and that's why there was problems back in March when we saw the kids literally on top of each other. So there has been some progress on the outflow. The problem is just that there's just a continued big increase of the inflow.
Right. I saw on your Twitter feed that you had some new video. This doesn't appear to me to be it, but I know there have been a couple of recent groups that have crossed and turned themselves into Border Patrol. What are you seeing right now down there in the Rio Grande Valley?
I mean, it's the same thing that's been happening since, really, we saw this spike happen in February, which was unusual because the typical spikes that we see doesn't happen until around the springtime. And so that's why it was pretty significant when we started to see that in February. And actually now the Washington Post is reporting that the new apprehension numbers for June are going to be about the same high levels, which is around over 180,000, give or take. And of course, the main issue is that those are the people that for the most part, are willingly turning themselves in. What we're seeing is the number of gotaways, which are people who are known to have entered the country, but for one reason or another are not able to be intercepted by law enforcement. And so that's how they're able to get away. And so we don't know who those people are, right? And if they're not unaccompanied minors, and if they're not family units, which are typically the groups of people who turn themselves in, it leads to guess, well, okay, well then who really are they? And typically those are the people that can be dangerous, or drug smugglers, or whoever, because they know that if they get caught, they'll be removed from the United States.
Right, but although the unaccompanied minors are allowed to stay, as we know. So it's July now, the weather's turning certainly down there and getting very hot. Are these folks turning themselves in because of health issues and dehydration, or are they turning themselves in just giving up?
It's a combination of that, absolutely. I mean, when I was down in Havana, Texas, there was one woman who was experiencing symptoms of severe dehydration. A Border Patrol medic had to be called, and they had to give her more water and electrolytes because she was not well. And you know, this was 90-degree heat. The humidity is 60% down in the Rio Grande Valley, and so that's part of the problem now that we're seeing with now deep into the summer months, because that's why people were coming in typically during the spring, where it's not nearly as hot, but because they know that if they get into the country, if they're an unaccompanied minor or family unit, and they turn themselves in, they know that they have a pretty good chance of staying within the country.
Julio Rosas, townhall.com. Good to see you. Thanks again for your update.
Thank you.
A U.S. veteran is going to Tokyo to represent her country in the Paralympics. We'll show you the moment she found out that great news. The race to unseat California Governor Gavin Newsom is underway. We'll talk with one of the Republican candidates on his plans for the Golden State. Start this segment with a quick election update for you, and it comes to us from New York. The race for mayor there, the Associated Press has declared Eric Adams the winner of the Democratic primary in that New York City mayor's race. That means he will square off against Curtis Sliwa, who won the Republican side. We're going to shift now across the country to California, where a recall race is moving forward, with the date to vote on whether to oust Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom set now for September 14th. And joining me now, one of the Republicans running for governor in the recall, former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer. Mayor, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Based on your Twitter feed here, you're focusing on homelessness. So give us your 30-second elevator speech on your Streets to Shelter plan.
Well, thank you, Joe. It's great to be back with you. And the direct approach that we're taking is not allowing tent encampments on the sidewalks in California, just like I did not while I was mayor of San Diego. We have to do that. We care about people. We are not going to allow people to die on our streets and our sidewalks. That's what happens when we have an unsafe, unclean, unsanitary environment that oftentimes is also used as an open-air drug market. We're better than that as Californians.
So what do you do instead? More shelters?
It's exactly that. And in fact, in San Diego, we were the only big city in California where we actually reduced it by double digits. Look, I believe that everybody has a right to shelter. And when we provide that, I also believe that you have an obligation to use it. While I was mayor of San Diego, we enforced that obligation, and it worked.
How did you enforce it?
Well, I started an entirely new division within the San Diego Police Department called the Neighborhood Policing Division, whose sole focus was on homelessness and quality of life. And as I said, we did not allow tent encampments in front of people's places of work or where where folks live. I even took it out to state property, Caltrans property. I'm going to lead by example as governor, take that exact same approach, because what we are seeing on the streets of California, Joe, is a disgrace. We know how to turn it around. We did it in San Diego, and I'm going to take that exact same approach statewide in California.
I looked it up today, and correct me if I'm wrong, but California has spent $13 billion with a B, billion, over the last 3 years on homeless.
Look,
go ahead.
Yes, you're right. And you can throw all the money in the world at this problem. But if you don't have the political will to make a difference on the streets, you're not going to change this dynamic. We did that in San Diego. And when folks saw the difference, when they saw the tents going away, again, this isn't a partisan issue. This is a common sense issue. It worked, and you have to have the will to do this in every city in all parts of our state.
How much would your program cost, Mayor?
You know, Joel, I will tell you, it's not inexpensive to set up the shelters, but it's a lot less expensive than seeing what we're happening now in terms of the money that gets thrown after this, as you rightfully pointed out, in the billions of dollars. We're going to save money. We're going to save money not just on helping folks, but again, we're going to help save the dollars that we're spending on tackling this problem that is exploding by double digits in virtually every city across California.
Let's talk about the recall. Again, the poll, you may have an updated one. The last one I saw, 57% would keep Newsom in place. 40% would vote to remove him. That's a mountain you can't really do a whole lot about, is it?
Look, I think the enthusiasm is clearly on the yes side of this equation. And the folks, and this recall is going to be a referendum on Gavin Newsom's failures, and there's plenty out here. All the small businesses that are open and shut. Our schools are still not fully reopened. As we talked about, violent crime that is rising. And so I think when you put all of that together, there's a reason why 2 million Californians signed this recall petition. And by the way, it's Democrats, Republicans, and independents who want a change at the top, and they want it now. So there is no doubt in my mind that when you put all of that together, folks want a change, and I think we're going to see that in California on September 14th.
This is costing north of $200 million as well. Is that money well spent, considering he's up for election again next year anyway?
Well, I would contrast that by the $30 billion this year that under this governor went out fraudulently from our unemployment department in California. $30 billion. So the answer is yes, Californians are ready to spend dollars on a recall election. It's going to save us money. And I think that's why you see the real sense of urgency that Californians know we're going to save billions when Gavin Newsom is gone.
For our viewers who don't understand, it's a two-pronged question on this California recall election. Number one, should Newsom be recalled? Number two, who should replace him? Let's say he maintains the position here for the next year, as we talked about. Would you run against him again next year?
I was already planning on running in the future for next year. And when we knew that this recall was going to happen, and we supported it strongly, jumped in with both feet. So the answer is yes. But I absolutely believe that Californians are going to go to the polls. And when they go to the polls, that answer is going to be, it is time to have a change at the top and recall Gavin Newsom.
We'll find out September 14th, right?
It's coming up, but I will tell you, it's a sprint. And once that date was set just last week, you can feel this enthusiasm all across our state. Again, from Californians of all walks of life, right. All party affiliations, they're ready for a change.
All right, Kevin Faulkner, former San Diego mayor and California gubernatorial hopeful. Good to see you. We'll be in touch over the next couple of months. Take care.
You got it. Thanks, Joe. Thank you.
We have another update for you. This just in, Tropical Storm ELSA is now Hurricane ELSA. The National Hurricane Center announcing that just a short time ago. The storm currently traveling up the west coast of Florida over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, heading in the direction of Tampa. 9 a.m. landfall expected, according to Albert, who told us that just a minute ago. Sustained winds at the moment at 75 miles per hour. We'll keep an eye on that for you throughout the evening on Prime. Bizarre video posted by Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, stirring up mixed response online. How the CEO celebrated Independence Day. Let's bring you up to date now on the latest with ELSA and bring in Albert. Albert?
Yeah, Joe, as you mentioned, this just upgraded over the last couple of minutes from the National Hurricane Center from a tropical storm to a Category 1 hurricane. Max sustained winds at 75 miles per hour as it continues to move off towards the north pretty quickly for a tropical system at 14 miles per hour. The hurricane hunters are en route to the center of ELSA. They're going to be dropping some packages, what's are called drop sounds, getting that raw data back to the National Hurricane Center as they continue to fine-tune the forecast for this one. Now, here is the big update. We are going to see conditions go downhill in the Tampa Bay area later on this evening. I think by 9:30 Eastern time, tropical storm conditions, so winds gusting above 40 miles per hour. And then around midnight, if not just after midnight, the core of ELSA will be directly off towards the west of Tampa Bay, and that's when we'll see the threat of hurricane force winds in Tampa. Also, there will be an extreme amount of onshore flow, winds coming from the Gulf moving inland, and that's going to pile up the water across the bay, and that's why 3 to 5 foot storm surge is is in the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, but that also may get fine-tuned as ELSA gets even a little bit more on the stronger side. This is a look at live Doppler radar from our exclusive News Nation radar in Tampa, showing the thunderstorm activity across the peninsula, along with the winds and rain, Joe. Tornado threat, tornado watch in effect for much of the peninsula of Florida through the evening.
Lots to keep an eye on, and I know you will do just that, Albert, coming up on News Nation Prime. Thank you very much. A couple of other stories we want to bring you up to date on now before we let you go, and it's going to start with Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook. Of course, you know him, and you may have seen this video over the weekend, posted on Facebook, of course, and Instagram. There he is on what is called a hydrofoil, which we're all still sort of trying to figure out exactly what it is. And there's also the song there, John Denver's "Take Me Home, Country Roads." This is about as controversial, I guess, as you would imagine when someone like Mark Zuckerberg posts it. So if you want to get lost in a rabbit hole on social media, it was called everything from odd to quirky to indescribable. You might want to check that out and see some of the many responses online. Another quick update for you. This one has to do with U.S. Olympic track star Sha'Carri Richardson, the 21-year-old winner of the U.S. Olympic track and fields trials 100-meter dash, was suspended, as we know, from participating in the Olympics for 1 month last week after testing positive for marijuana. Well, now U.S. track and field has left Richardson completely off the team, saying their credibility as the national governing body would be lost if rules were only enforced under certain circumstances. There was some hope that she might be able to run in one of the relay events, but again, that hope gone tonight. Sha'Carri Richardson out of the Tokyo Olympics. Tonight's Bite of the Night, though, takes us to someone who's in. Melissa Stockwell, a U.S. veteran who fought in Iraq, lost her leg in combat when her vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. She will be taking part in the Paralympics in Tokyo, and we have the moment she found out she's on her way.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm going to Tokyo. Oh my God! My name is on the list. I'm going to Tokyo! I cannot believe it.
That is great to see for sure. I think the dog's happier than anyone, but we'll be rooting her on for sure at the Paralympics. That's our time for now. News Nation Prime coming up next with Marnie, the latest on the situation with ELSA and much more. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.